Sure, man. Yeah, I'll just turn right down.
Thank you. Get ready.
Oh, fuck it. Well, let's go save the planet.
He has got shit you have never seen.
What does that mean? What are our chances?
Pretty much 0. You come in here again. In fact, you go anywhere in the city preying on Venom. On second thought, please.
Making her first appearance in Venom 2099, issue 1, Aaliyah Bell started her superpowered days on a tragic note, as most of these are. She was in a car crash that ended up taking the life of her mother. She was raised afterwards by her father Theo Bell, and Aaliyah was having a hard time at school. Some students were bullying her because of the scars on her arm from that crash. So yeah, those kids are awful. Don't be like those kids. Thanks. Next, Aaliyah was selected to go under this experimental treatment developed by Alchemax scientist Dr. Russell. But as you would guess, being on this list, the experiment went south. During this treatment, she saw these visions of an ancient dark god. All these humans bunched up together, all these voices. It was just eternal darkness. But after the treatment, her arm was back to normal, which was her main goal here. But when a bully came forward to try and mess with her the next day, a black tendril reached out of her hand and cut off the Alchemax monitoring bracelet. So something's fishy here. She started to then hear an evil voice in her head, so she ran home and literally tried to wash the symbiote off like a bad henna tattoo. Alchemax was planning on turning her into a super soldier the whole time. That was their secret evil plan. The symbiote and Aaliyah ended up relating to each other, and a new Venom was born. Their first plan of attack was to infiltrate Alchemax and get the rest of the symbiote, not just the arm part. Once Venom was whole again, Aaliyah made it agree to not kill anymore, and instead be a hero with her. A hero that scars childhood bullies named Bether. And before we continue on with this list of alternate versions of Venom, if you want to go ahead and give that video a thumbs up, that would help us a lot. It really goes miles for us here at Top 10 Nerd. You're so sweet. Back to the list. Number 9, X-23. Coming from Edge of Venomverse, this alternate version of the symbiote might be the scariest. Yeah, Laura was born in a lab from the DNA of one James Howlett. She was cloned and alone all of her life, trying multiple times to escape, but still there was no luck. The guards were always ready for her. That is until a goopy solution was bestowed upon her. Her claw cracked open a glass panel that released the Venom symbiote, and the next page we see X-23 out and about trying to talk the symbiote out of eating some of the others who live nearby. Now they don't eat those kids, but when a thug comes along asking those kids for money that they owe, Venom Laura stops him real quick. Says people getting hurt makes them sick, and then 7 pages later they absolutely annihilate more guards in public. We love it. Number 8, Fashion Venom. Venom with a twist, or rather, Venom with a hip twist. The Marvel Age miniseries Spider-Man and Power Pack. This was a 4-parter released in 1984. We have Alex, Julie, Jack, and Katie Power. They're these adorable young kids, each got their powers after a chameleon named Whitey passed his powers onto them. He'd separated all of his abilities into the 4 of them. Kind of like the Fantastic Four, except with more boogers. The miniseries kicks off with Spider-Man thanking the pack for helping him stop Sandman earlier. He thanks the children by getting them VIP tickets to New York Fashion Week, because that's something kids enjoy, apparently. Much better than Legoland, I guess. Little vacay on Spider-Man, we'd love to see it. Now cut to a fashion designer rushing to work. He gets bumped, spills coffee everywhere, his fancy new fabric is ruined, so he's probably ruined as well. That guy that bumped into him just happened to be Venom. Spider-Man swoops in, handles him right quick with a sonic blaster, gets the symbiote right off of him, but where did that symbiote go? That designer got his glittery hands on the suit, and New York Fashion Week wasn't ready for the newest, hottest trend. He introduced this new fabric, so versatile it can change your appearance. Wow, if you want to wear jorts, then all of a sudden you want to wear not jorts. There you go, buy this stuff. Peter just happens to be there snapping pics of MJ, getting those angles, when all of a sudden, those dazzling dresses turn deadly. Turns out the solution of the day is bad European techno music at full volume. That's the solution for most things in life, realistically. Number 7, Venom Thing. Coming from Earth 51838, making his first horrible appearance in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 304, Benjamin Grimm became the head guard of a prison for superhumans, of course under the commands of President Harry Osborne. While he was there, that's when he came into close contact with a symbiote and became this absolute unit. Look at this thing. The Resistance came in and had to go toe-to-toe with Venom Thing. That's the scariest thing I can imagine. Literally, the scariest thing I can imagine. Out of all the alternate versions, this guy has to be the most haunting. I mean, even before the Venom symbiote actually came into contact with him, I wouldn't want to fight Ben Grimm in any prison on any day. So we have to include him. I mean, look at him, come on. Number 6, Ngozi. Ngozi was a track star. She began her comic run in Venomverse War Stories issue 1. She was an outstanding athlete, an amazing person in general, until she was involved in a horrible bus crash in which paralyzed her from the waist down. Again, another tragic start to this version. Really heartbreaking premises are coming in for part 2, wow. She was outside one day trying to catch a grasshopper for her bug collection. Her hobbies, of course, were turned down a notch. She was a little slower, but still nonetheless she was outside enjoying life regardless. That's when the symbiote and her crossed paths, changing her life forever. The symbiote beforehand had been evading the grasp of Rhino, but when Black Panther was killed in that battle, Ngozi convinced the symbiote to work with her instead, in order to protect the civilians of Lagos. The Dora Milaje saw all this unfold, and they were impressed with the young lady. They saw courage in her, so they recruited her into their ranks and also into Wakanda, where she would then get another life-changing upgrade into that of the new Black Panther. Not too shabby. Number 5, Hawkeye. While Clint may have evaded the symbiote's grasp in Old Man Hawkeye, he wasn't too lucky in the alternate reality of Earth 32323. That sounds so stupid. I just keep saying it for like 4 minutes, I'm like, help. Beginning with Civil War Volume 2, Issue 2, Clint came into contact with it right after the death of Mac Gargan, who we broke down in Part 1, which if you haven't seen, you can watch it after, it's cool, you can do it out of order, we won't tell anyone. After that, Venom Clint was recruited by Peter Parker in order to infiltrate the Iron. The Iron was Tony's war zone, this was right after Civil War. So Peter recruited Clint in order to steal supplies for Beast to finish his weapon project, so he agreed, but upon landing the group was attacked by Stark's Sentinels, and Elektra ended up losing her life. Now the reason Clint got this symbiote in the first place is still unknown, but it's said to be potentially traumatic, as are most things involving the symbiote. Number 4, Kingpin Venom. Wilson Fisk, straight out of Earth TRN 421. He appeared in the 100th anniversary special of Spider-Man issue 1 back in 2014. You would think Kingpin obtaining the symbiote for more power would be enough to make you feel sick, but he also had to upgrade it as well, which is what makes this version so unique, and I had to include it here. He added techno-organic improvements to the symbiote that gave him access to any and all tech on the planet. You better check those recently deleted photos before going to a dinner party with Wilson Fisk. When Eddie Brock and Peter Parker were duking it out, they both came to the conclusion that the symbiote should just, you know what, be destroyed. It's not helping either party, let's just get rid of it. Great deal. Goopy fist bump. But that's when Kingpin came along and kidnapped both of them, and then he got the symbiote. And honestly, Kingpin Venom, when he's chasing Peter down, he's like controlling tech and using it against him. I can see this being a pretty stressful situation for Peter, but somehow he managed to escape by luring him into the woods and then starting a forest fire. Usually I would advise against forest fires, but it's Venom we're talking about, so burn it. Burn it all. Get rid of him. Number 3, Don Fortunado. Quite an unfortunado story if you ask me. Not really, it's actually quite tragic. Back in 2005, Marvel wanted to reboot Venom, so the new Venom host was now Don Fortunado after he won the symbiote in an auction. Hey, you want a car or you want a life-changing goop that's gonna kill your family? He gave the suit to his son Angelo to make him more tough, I guess. See, Eddie warned about the risks, but Angelo didn't listen. Angelo attacked Spider-Man and ripped out his heart, only to discover, oops, that was just an imposter, because costumes are a thing that exist in real life. And after a fight with the Spider-Man, Angelo left out of fear. Venom wasn't a fan of this because he's like, oh, you're leaving, I don't like you, you're kind of weak. So he left the host, he left him mid-air. Spider-Man would have swooped down and saved him, but his gear wasn't working properly after the fight he just had with Angelo. You played yourself. Number 2, Old Man Logan. We had Laura on the list earlier, so we gotta throw Logan in there too. Of course! Coming from the edge of Venomverse issue 4, we see Logan get captured by Angel, Spider-Girl, and Hulk Jr. when all of a sudden he's eaten by a T-Rex, the same T-Rex that was venomized in the original Old Man Logan story. Now considering the fact that Logan was eaten by the Hulk in that story and then ended up ripping his way out, we gotta think he's probably gonna be okay after this. And he is okay, in fact he's better than ever. The symbiote ended up bonding with Logan inside of the dinosaur, giving us a pretty fun issue. He rips his way through the dinosaur and tears his enemies apart. At one point, we're even given a glimpse of Venom Captain America, but we'll save him for another list. And finally, number 1, Agent Venom. Flash Thompson first appeared in Amazing Fantasy issue 15 back in the early 60s, and since his first introduction as a classmate to Peter Parker, he's seen quite a bit of change. First starting out as a bully, and by the time he left college he was joining the military, stationed in Southeast Asia, but he didn't stick around for too long. The American forces just destroyed this beautiful temple that they found, and Flash was having no part of it. It's like Avatar, especially after meeting the lovely Shashan who healed him. He was like, guys, don't do this, let's just go home. But he went home. home. He returned to America and needed Spider-Man's assistance because the survivors of that hidden temple were now after him because they blamed Flash. Flash didn't become suspicious of Peter Parker being the webhead until much later, in issue 135 in fact. By the time we get to Amazing Spider-Man 574, Flash had returned to the battlefield, this time in Iraq, but he lost both of his legs. When he returned, Shashan was able to help rehabilitate him. Things changed dramatically for Flash when he was enlisted into Project Rebirth 2.0. The government had acquired the Venom symbiote after Mac Gargan's arrest following the siege of Asgard. We break down Mac in part 1 of this list, so you haven't checked that out yet, you know what to do once this is over. So now Flash has legs again. How lovely is that? And Spider-Man abilities, just to top that off. His first task made him enemies with the new Jack-o'-lantern. Honestly, I feel quite bad for Flash. Most see him as a bully. He had a terrible father, he got kidnapped by Dr. Doom because he dressed like Spider-Man one day, and he's got terrible luck. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Lee Price. Making his comic book debut as Venom in Volume 3, Lee Price had a pretty rough life, before the symbiote stuff even. He was bullied, his father was horrible to him and his mother, so he burned the place down to the ground. Which is not a great way of handling the situation, but comic books, you know, what are you gonna do? He blamed the fire on a mutant boy with pyrokinesis, and when he grew up, he suppressed all of it. He actually believed down the road that his father had abandoned him and that the fire was actually caused by the mutant. He was in protective services after that point, and as an adult, he would join the Army Rangers, until he was injured in a mine explosion, which in turn left him without a few squad members and a few fingers. Discharged and left without any benefits, Lee had no choice but to accept a job from Mac Gargan to be a tough guy while the deal goes down between Black Cat's gang and Tombstone's gang. That's when he found the symbiote, or rather, the symbiote found him. Number 9. Ultimate Venom. Venom of Earth 1610, aka the Ultimate Universe, made his first appearance in Ultimate Spider-Man 33. Now the Ultimates are great for the most part. We see these major changes to the heroes we thought we knew, like Thor for example isn't a god this time around. Gwen becomes Carnage, and Wanda and her bro, they're close. They're closer than the other version, that's for sure. In this tale, Richard Parker and Eddie Brock Sr. were working together to develop a way to heal humanity. The symbiotic biosuit named Project Venom was underway. The project was adding up to be more than a two-man job, so they partnered up with Trask Industries for some help. The company eventually realized the potential of the symbiote and figured, let's just use it as a bioweapon and create super soldiers. Sounds good, let's do it. That ought to do something, right? Well, it did do something. When Richard and Eddie were on a plane to fight Trask in court, see, they had secretly created their own version and wanted to pull it out to prove ownership. But Eddie pulled the suit out a little bit too early while they were still flying, and that's how they all perished in the Ultimate Universe. As a student, Eddie Jr. began studying a sample of that same Venom project with Dr. Kurt Connors, and Peter took a piece to study himself. After Peter spilled a drop on his hand, he got the black suit makeover, cranking his powers up to 10. He was now untouchable, but when a robber shot another man, this triggered Peter. It reminded him of his Uncle Ben and what happened, so he went full Venom. He made an absolute mess. He lost the symbiote after getting entangled in electric cables on purpose. He wanted this thing to go. The only parts left were in his bloodstream, and also that other sample left at the lab, which yes, Eddie Jr. ended up finding. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. If not, still give it a thumbs up and still give us more chances. I don't know, back to the list. Number 8, Demon. Coming in hot from Earth 5101, Pavitar Prabhakar made his first appearance in Spider-Man India, issue 1. Pavitar moved to Mumbai with his Aunt Maya and Uncle Bim to continue studying. He got half a scholarship and was determined to keep the success train going. His best and only friend, MJ, Mira Jane, stood by his side all the while. He got his powers through an ancient ritual, which in my opinion is way cooler than a spider biting your hand mid-photo, you know? Nalan Oberoi, a crime lord of this alternate reality, used an amulet to get himself possessed by a demon. That demon was determined to hold the door open for other demonic forces. Pavitar, while being chased by bullies, ran into an ancient yogi who then gave him the powers of a spider. Which sounds great, but when you find out that this reality's Venom is a century-old demon stuck in an amulet, you get a little bit nervous for him. Demon Venom was freed by a cult called the Neo-Alvers, and once he was free, nearby towns were just obliterated. You know the rest. He had us in the name Demon, let's be honest here. Number 7, She-Venom. Anne Wang, aka She-Venom, will be returning in Venom Let There Be Carnage. Michelle Williams is set to return, of course, and she's been around in comics for a while. She first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue 375 back in 1993. She first met Eddie while at Empire State University, and she actually fell in love with him quite fast because, you know, he saved her life from a group of thugs. That ought to do it. So they get married, Eddie starts working for the Daily Globe, she was a lawyer, and everything sounds like a pretty fantastic household if you ask me. You know, until Venom Dark Origin issue 2, when she divorced Eddie after getting sick of his Spidey hatred. Once Eddie got the symbiote, Spider-Man asked for Anne's help. Any hot tips, favorite driving ranges? Come on, help a brother out here. So she explained some of his history and it did help. Spider-Man was able to meet up with him in issue 375 of The Amazing Spider-Man. But Anne followed in the background as well. She wanted to talk to Eddie and talk him down from this vendetta. Things were actually starting to cool off for a bit, and then these idiots show up to take everybody in. That doesn't happen, obviously. Instead, Anne is put in danger and Spider-Man helps Eddie save her. And then the two webheads make a deal. Later on in Venom Sinner Takes All issue 2, Anne was shot by the third Sin Eater and was bleeding internally. It wasn't looking good. Venom carried her away to a secret hideout, and the only way she could survive was if the symbiote attached itself and healed her, thus creating She-Venom. Number 6. Anti-Venom. When Eddie Brock and the symbiote did separate, you would think that would be the end of it, or something good at least. Well, in fact, without the symbiote, Eddie has to now live with cancer, which sucks, but he spent his days volunteering at the Feast Center, so he's trying. Something's happening, he's trying to make good. Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, used his powers to cure Eddie's cancer. Just Eddie? Like, I feel like there's a lot of other people we could help out, but okay. But in doing so, Lee accidentally infused the symbiote into Eddie's bloodstream, so the symbiote was fused into his white blood cells. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 569, Anti-Venom is now born. It's just Venom with the opposite colors, essentially with the white blood cells added in there. This version of the symbiote has phenomenal healing powers, as you would guess. It can create antibodies that cures any known disease or any impurities with your body. Now, the main difference between Venom and Anti-Venom is that Eddie Brock is now in full control. He's got two hands on the wheel this time around, and the symbiote lasted a few years in the comics, and in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 671 it was destroyed when it was used to cure the spider virus. Number 5. Gwenom. Hitting the page for the first time in Spider-Gwen Volume 2, issue 25, Gwenom, well, you can probably guess. Gwen Stacy turns to the dark side after she sees her father beaten into a coma from Rhino. Thing is, Matt Murdock gave the order. Yikes. She's out for blood, and this symbiote will make it a lot easier to shed it. But not if Frank Castle gets to them first. He actually killed Rhino right as Gwenom was gearing up to do it. Probably for the best that it didn't happen. She's actually out for everybody at this time, because then she breaks into the S.H.I.E.L.D. correctional facility to confront Cindy Moon, and she asks Cindy why she made this mutant spider in the first place. Cindy sees that she's upset, but she doesn't blame the symbiote. She knows that these are Gwen's words and thoughts, the symbiote is just shouting them. Cindy implores Gwen to let go of her anger towards Matt Murdock, which is easier said than done. Number 4. Venom 2099. Kon Stone, the older half-brother of Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, first entered comics in Punisher 2099. But 3 years later in Spider-Man 2099 issue 35, he becomes Venom. How did this happen? You're literally in the Spider family. What went wrong? Well, Kon was a bully. He was actually so horrible as a person that Miguel once tried to take him out, before all this jazz. So Kon gave the orders to try and have Jake Gallows and his family wiped out, but Gallows found out and beat Kon to the punch. So while he was laying there in a sewer after a knife wound, this black ball of goop suddenly brushed up against him and then engulfed him. The symbiote was different this time around though. See, it had acidic blood and saliva to help get the job done. Kon can also turn his body into a liquid. The guy can literally shapeshift, so of course Venom 2099 is on this list. Number 3. May Parker. Venom strikes the Parker family again, this time on Earth 9997. May Parker is quite unique when it comes to superpowers. In Jim Krueger's Earth X run from 1999, instead of keeping them a secret, she actually embraced it. I am Iron Man style, which is how I think I would handle powers, but realistically, I'm afraid of heights. I would retire in 5 business days tops. Matt Murdock trained her to use her spider sense like radar, and things were going well, until she became the target of a symbiote. That same symbiote that had been used by her father years before. See, Peter rejected the symbiote at first, so now it was a little upset, and it swore revenge on the Parkers. Any Parker. Doesn't matter what age, what generation. Venom doesn't take too kindly to rejection, so one day it left an older Eddie Brock and made its way to May. Thing is, when the symbiote did bond to May, her spider sense training came in handy and she was able to subjugate the symbiote and take control. Nice. This is why we all need a crime-fighting blind lawyer for guidance. Is it too hard to ask for? Number 2. Scorpion Venom. Matt Gargan was a private investigator hired by J. Jonah Jameson to find out just exactly how Peter gets those angles on the webhead. How does he get those TikToks? What is he doing? How does he get those boomerangs? They're always so good. Something's gotta be up. But every time Mac would get close, Peter's spider sense would tip him off and he would easily avoid him. It was kind of comical almost. So step 2 was, let's just pay Mac 10 grand and have him be the subject of an experiment involving animal mutations doctor Harley Sitwell. Then maybe we'll figure out how a wide lens works, perhaps. I don't know, that might be the trick. Obviously things go south, Mac becomes the villain Scorpion. Later on in comics during Marvel Knights, Scorpion was recruited by Norman Osborn and was sent to kidnap Aunt May, if anything were to happen to Osborn. Hey, if you don't get a text back, go steal that kid's aunt. Awesome, freaks. So whilst on the way to take Aunt May, the recently freed Venom symbiote felt this shared hatred towards Peter Parker, and the two bonded, creating Scorpion Venom. Just the absolute worst. You never want to bump into this guy. And finally, number 1. The Punisher. With the Disney What If series launching off this past week, I think it's only fair to include one of my favorite What If scenarios, also the goriest. This one comes from What If series Volume 2, issue 44. Here we find the Venom symbiote taking over Frank Castle rather than Eddie Brock. Now I thought the Punisher was frightening before this. Oh boy. This was the most people the Punisher has ever in his life. You've been warned. This is a pretty brutal time. The symbiote can shoot webs, and in Frank Castle fashion, an unlimited amount of bullets also comes in handy. The symbiote tried to take over Frank's body, but Frank vowed to end his own life if that was the case. So the symbiote's like, damn it, alright, fine, fair.
Number 10, Contest of Champions. Venom is the antithesis to Peter Parker when you think about it. I read somewhere, I can't remember where, that Venom is essentially what happens when someone acquires great power without possessing the great responsibility to keep it in check. And I like that. The two have an epic rivalry, but in Contest of Champions, yes, the Marvel fighting game, fans were introduced to a Venom from an alternate Earth that had managed to finally take down his first host and number 1 enemy, Spider-Man. He went a little crazy off the victory over his longtime adversary and took the Spider-Man suit from Spider-Man's body and started to wear it around his neck as a tiny little cape. It's almost kind of cute, if not a little horrifying. He is a Venom that ultimately completed his number 1 goal. He's living life as a fully realized Venom, just thriving. You go, Venom. You go. Number 9, Mech Venom. I'm not entirely sure that this is a future world, but the technology would suggest so. In an alternate reality Earth, 14512, a reality of giant robots and giant morbid monsters, the armored hero SP-4-4-DR, or Penny Parker, fights for peace and justice. Seeking to replicate the success of the SP-4-4-DR mech, the Venom, which is spelled VEN #M suit, is created. That's really confusing. Oh well. Combining a biomechanical sim engine with bleeding edge robotics. Get it? Sim engine? Like symbiote? Nice. Wordplay. Ultimately, during a crisis with the Morbius kaiju, the suit goes rogue, very rogue, and assimilates its pilot, young Addie Brock, plus Penny's Aunt May. The suit becomes a frightening, downright unstoppable threat to the world. Venom is a threat all on its own before it becomes a giant mech suit, so this is pretty bad. Number 8. More robots. Speaking of giant robotic mechs, in Megamorphs, Marvel's seriously obvious attempt to sell some toys, Iron Man recruited heroes such as Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Ghost Rider to aid him in battling the forces of evil using giant, eerily Transformer-like robots. Each of these giant robots, that also kind of remind me of Power Rangers, is unique to and powered by each hero. Unfortunately, villains got their hands on the tech as well that created the mechs, and a few have their own. Bet you can't guess who has one. Yes, obviously it's Venom. God, you read the title? Dr. Doom recruits a team of villains to jump into their own giant robots to fight the do-gooders. And Venom pilots the Spider Smasher, a massive robot similar in style and color scheme to Venom with cool Venom-based abilities. It can also transform to be more spider-like as well. When it first shows up, it does battle with the Thing, almost losing before it makes its escape. Number 7, Old Man Hawkeye / Logan. Old Man Logan is an insanely graphic and fresh take on the Marvel Universe. It's set in a post-apocalyptic America where the villains of the Marvel Universe coordinated a simultaneous attack on the heroes orchestrated by none other than the Red Skull. There's a gang of superfluous Hulks, a giant skeleton of Loki crushed by the Baxter Building, old versions of superheroes and supervillains, and a Venom symbiote bonded with a T-Rex from the Savage Land. Even though this Venom only showed up for a little brief moment in the Old Man Logan storyline, Venom Rex instantly became a fan favorite character, which meant we got to see how this came to be in the follow-up, or I guess the prequel, Old Man Hawkeye. In this story, we see a Venom who bonds to the Madrox gang, who have kind of separated from James Madrox, sort of, but not really, doesn't really matter. But after Venom bonded to the Madrox, they now use their power to duplicate themselves into an army of Venoms bound to track down Hawkeye, who had stuck the other Madrox members with plenty of arrows. An army of Venoms chasing you across the country would be pretty terrifying. After hunting down Clint to Kate Bishop's sanctuary, the two heroes led the Venom army into the wilds where it reduced its number, but then a random T-Rex from the Savage Land attacked the symbiote? I don't know. If you read Old Man Logan, you know that this is the exact same Tyrannosaurus that attacks Logan and Clint. And now, we've come full circle. Number 6. More of the same? And we return to Wolverine Old Man Logan, the same series as the previously mentioned T-Rex, except 15 years later and in the Edge of Venomverse 4, where things are now decidedly worse for the feral hero. The baby Hulk Logan took from the Hulk gang, Banner Jr., grew up a bit, and after Logan told him what happened to his family, the little Hulk beat the snot out of Logan. After Archangel, Banner Jr., and Ashley Barton capture Logan in the danger room of the X-Men mansion, they unveil that dang venomized T-Rex yet again is alive. Logan is able to defeat Ashley, but when he attempts to take on the Venomsaurus Rex, that's what I'm gonna call it, he instead finds himself leaping down its throat. Banner Jr. is mid-celebration when suddenly the symbiote changes sides, de-bonds from the T-Rex, and takes over Logan. Logan escapes the beast as his Venom self and goes after his 2 captures. He defeats Archangel, and then just as he's about to finish off Banner Jr., he claims he can't, and that he kept the truth of his family from him because he loves him like a son, all while a portal randomly appears, bringing this Venom Wolverine face to face with the Venom Captain America of the Resistance in the Edge of Venomverse story arc. Number 5, 2099. The Earth of Spider-Man 2099 is pretty awesome. Cyberpunk themes, President Doom, Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man with the awesome suit. It shouldn't be any surprise that the Venom of 2099 is just as awesome and kind of scary, so long that it has evolved to have new abilities like acid blood and spit. This version of the symbiote bonded itself to Kon Stone, the son of Tyler Stone and the elder half-brother of Miguel O'Hara, bringing Venom and the Spider-Man even closer than their modern-day equivalents. The symbiote first appears when it tries to kill Tyler in the hospital, and that is when Spider-Man intervenes. The fight goes on for a long time, like several issues long, with Venom even taking Spider-Man's former lovers. After Miguel learnt of Venom's weakness to sound, sonic sounds were emitted all over the city, stunning Venom, allowing Spider-Man to beat him, revealing Krom's identity. Later, the symbiote would merge with Roman the Submariner and flee to the ocean. Wow. Number 4, Aaliyah Bell. Kon Stone isn't the only person to bond to the Venom symbiote in the world of 2099. Aaliyah Bell had an injury on her left arm that she got in a terrible accident as a child. Now, as a teenager, the corporation Alchemax had Aaliyah undergo an experimental treatment that would fix her disfigurement. Only, what she didn't know is that Alchemax had actually bonded her with a piece of the Venom symbiote and had intended to make her a super soldier. Just like the Venom everyone loves, Aaliyah pleaded with the symbiote to become a hero with their abilities instead of being a monster and eating people. Venom agreed, but the pair start receiving dark visions of the symbiote god Null still being alive on Earth. Number 3, Venom as an acronym. Earth 138 is one of many realities that is shown to us in the Spider-Verse event. The President of the United States in this reality is Norman Osborn, who is also still the CEO of Oscorp. And what do you know? Oscorp in this reality also created Venom, as in V-E-N-O-M, like an acronym, which stands for Variable Engagement Neurosensitive Organic Mesh, so it's a bioweapon, one that President Osborn gives to his lackeys. Even he himself dons the dark creation, so we have an army of Venom-powered soldiers led by a Venom-powered President Norman Osborn. But who opposes this government Venom villain army? Well, this is the story where we get Spider-Punk and all his followers. Fighting for their beliefs, the Spider Army is a group of punks ready to stand their ground underground, and Spider-Man is their punk rock leader. Unfortunately for Osborne, their Venom is just as weak to sound as the Venom we all know and love, and we are shown this when Spider-Punk plays his electric guitar at full volume, completely blasting away the symbiotes as the two groups clash. Heck yeah. Number 2. Earth X. Earth 999, a world where basically every single person has powers. Things have gone apocalyptic, and the daughter of Peter Parker, May Parker, is in possession of the Venom symbiote. While her retired and cynical pops ain't too thrilled about it, she does actually have complete control over the symbiote thanks to her advanced and honed spider sense. She was eventually under the control of this kid going by the name of Red Skull, and thanks to her father and other Earth X classic heroes, she was saved. Venom and her father, Spider-Man, go on to join the superpowered police force and fight crime and supervillain threats together. She eventually, after the death of Death, goes on to be recruited by Kang the Conqueror as part of a multiversal team to fight the Apocalypse Twins. In addition to her proportional spider powers plus the enhanced spider sense, she gains all the usual symbiote powers plus a few extra, like what seems to be a rudimentary form of telepathy. And 'tis believed her symbiote could go on to mutate further to gain more powers, which is a good way for Marvel to say, we can do whatever we want with this. She's definitely one of the cooler incarnations of Venom. Number 1. Reign. 35 years have passed. Spider-Man is an old, retired man. Mary Jane Watson has passed away. New York is under the control of dictator Mayor Waters and his police force called Reign. But unbeknownst to most, it was actually Venom who had been pulling the strings, taking the position of aide to the mayor in the body of the cowardly Edward Sachs. This version of Venom is much more brooding, maniacal, and downright dastardly than his mainline counterpart, plotting and scheming for years for the eventual return of his rival Spider-Man. Venom is a bitter old symbiote ever since Spider-Man retired, feeling abandoned by the hero, and he cannot wait to get his hands back on him. He has replicated himself thousands of times, put together the Sinister Six, and has trapped the citizens of New York in the city with his security system known as Web, all for the eventual return of his nemesis. All that, and he is still defeated at the end of the comic. Or is he? Number 10. Multiple Man Venom. In the Old Man Logan story, we get a very awesome, if not short-lived look at the Tyrannosaurus Rex that was host to the Venom symbiote. Now, while that is an awesome idea, we learn nothing further about this Venom variant until Old Man Hawkeye, the prequel. In this story, we see a Venom who bonds to the Madrox gang, who have kind of separated from James Madrox. After Venom bonded to the Madrox, they now use their power to duplicate themselves into an army of Venoms, vowing to track down Hawkeye, who had stuck the other Madrox members with plenty of arrows. An army of Venoms chasing you across the country would be terrifying. Luckily, with the help of his friends, Hawkeye is able to trick the symbiote into reducing its number to chase him into the forest, where he bonds with said T-Rex. And now we've come full circle. Number 9. Venompool. I'm not talking about the what if Jerry Curl Venom, Deadpool, although he's awesome, and I'm not talking about the Back in Black Deadpool. No. We're talking about the Edge of Venomverse one-shot. In this world, there is a sentient tapeworm discovered by scientists that is being turned into a weapon by said scientists. Scientists, man. They never learn. Deadpool stumbles upon a lab where these tapeworms have taken over the bodies of the scientists here, and they begin to attack Deadpool. Now, lucky for him, there's just a Venom symbiote in a jar, and he breaks and bonds with it, and uses it to absolutely annihilate the tapeworms. He honestly ends up looking really cool, much more armored and alien looking than he did before, which I think there are a lot of allusions to the movie Alien in this comic, but I digress. Venompool basically goes around battling these tapeworms, helping delivering mothers and making balloon tapeworm animals for their kids. And he's killing it, until he's snatched away by Captain America Venom, taking him to join the Venomverse team. Number 8. Kingpin Venom. In the alternate Earth TRN 421, we pick up in the year 2061, and Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, has ended the mortal existence of Eddie Brock and taken the Venom symbiote as his own, bonding into this monstrous, massive, fat guy Venom, which is really intimidating already. But what we learn is that Kingpin has modified the symbiote to be able to travel through technology, kind of like how the ultimate version of Iron Man can, but way quicker, way cooler, and way more terrifying. King Venompin, as I'm gonna call him, can basically travel through electricity and the internet. He is seen controlling cars, helicopters, and even electronic billboards, all to pursue Peter Parker's Spider-Man, who has to literally run away because he cannot take on this guy. In the end, Peter had to flee into the woods, where King Venom followed. This part of the fight didn't last very long though, with Peter using the fire from a torch to detach the symbiote from Kingpin, saving the day rather annoyingly. This guy is definitely way too cool to be defeated, but you know, whatever. Number 7. Spider-Man Reign. 35 years have passed. Spider-Man is an old, retired man. Mary Jane Watson has passed away. New York is under the control of dictator Mayor Waters and his police force called Reign. But unbeknownst to most, it was Venom who had been pulling the strings, taking the position of aide to the mayor in the body of Edward Sachs. This version of Venom is much more brooding, maniacal, and downright dastardly than his mainline counterpart, plotting, scheming for the eventual return of his rival. He's a bitter old symbiote since Spider-Man retired, feeling abandoned by the hero and cannot wait to get his hands back on him. He has replicated himself thousands of times, put together the Sinister Six, and has trapped the citizens of New York in the city with his security system known as Webb, that's W-E-B-B. All that, and he is still defeated by the end of the comic. Shame. Number 6. Agent Venom. Flash Thompson, the bully to Peter Parker and unknowingly his high school #1 fan. After he goes off to the army and loses both of his legs, he joins up with a secret government program, Project Rebirth 2.0, that sees him bond with the Venom symbiote to become Agent Venom, a symbiote super soldier who set off on his own as a hero, joining the Secret Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Thunderbolts, and fighting in lots and lots of stories before he lost the symbiote and eventually became Agent Anti-Venom. With the symbiote, Flash gets the superhero starter pack of powers, plus those awarded to hosts of symbiotes. So that's wall crawling, web generation, spider sense, plus invulnerability to spider sense, invisibility, symbiote tendrils, and shapeshifting, and hive mind, and all that extra good stuff. But being a soldier, he is also extremely adept with weapons. He's an awesome fan favorite character, just like the original Venom, giving him a whole ton of the power of popularity. Number 5. Venom 2099. The Earth of Spider-Man 2099 is pretty awesome. Cyberpunk themes, President Doom, a seriously flawed Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man with that awesome suit. It shouldn't be any surprise that the Venom of 2099 is just as awesome and pretty terrifying. The Venom symbiote in this world has been around for a long time, like long enough even to have evolved to have new abilities. Really cool stuff like acid blood and spit. This version of the symbiote bonded itself to Kon Stone, the son of Tyler Stone and the elder half-brother of Miguel O'Hara. It's kind of confusing. The symbiote first appears when it tries to de-life Tyler in the hospital, and that is when Spider-Man intervenes. The fight goes on for a long time, like several issues long, with Venom making Spider-Man choose between his two loves and even de-lifing Spider-Man's former lover, Dana. After Miguel learned to Venom's weakness to sound, sonic sounds were emitted all over the city, stunning Venom and allowing Spider-Man to beat him. Later, the symbiote would merge with Roman the Submariner and flee into the ocean. But this version of the black goop really had some power, not to mention some anger issues. He was a true antithesis to Spider-Man, as Venom should be. Number 4. Host Rider. Ooh, wordplay. Well done. And also an extremely cool looking character with a Venom twist. Only it starts to make a little less sense the more you think about it. This Ghost Rider is actually Robbie Reyes, who, if you don't know, isn't actually the spirit of vengeance. He's actually the spirit of his uncle, who seems to have completely taken over his body. And somewhere along the line, we're not told when, the Venom symbiote bonded with them, creating this almost perfect chaotic parasitic being, basically just using the body of Robbie Reyes. Now, like I said, it kind of makes no sense. Ghost Rider is literally hellfire, and symbiotes are weak to fire, but I don't think anyone is really complaining. This guy is brutal. He dispatches S.H.I.E.L.D. agents with ease, and he feeds the Calvin Zabo of his universe to his car. His car eats people! Come on, it is cool and terrifying all at the same time. This Host Rider has an ability called the Penance Kiss, which is very much like the Penance Stare, only with the mouth, determining people's guilt or innocence and then pretty much consuming their soul. I can't help but imagine what his voice sounds like. It's probably really cool. He's brutal, he's ruthless, he looks amazing, he's covered in fire, and they are Host Rider. Number 3. May Parker Venom. Earth X. Earth 999, a world where basically every single person has powers, except things have gone apocalyptic, and where the daughter of Peter Parker, May Parker, is Venom. While her retired and cynical pops ain't too thrilled about it, she does actually have complete control over the symbiote thanks to her advanced and honed spider sense. She was eventually under the control of this kid, going by the Red Skull name, and thanks to her father and other Earth X classic heroes, was saved. With Venom and her father Spider-Man going on to join the super-powered police force and fight crime and supervillain threats together. She eventually, after the death was recruited by Kang the Conqueror as a multiversal team to fight the Apocalypse Twins. In addition to her proportional spider powers, plus the enhanced spider sense, she gains all the usual symbiote powers, plus a few extra, like what seems to be a rudimentary form of telepathy. And 'tis believed her symbiote could go on to mutate further to gain more powers, which is a good way for Marvel to say, we can do whatever we want with this. She is definitely one of the cooler incarnations of Venom, as are most characters on the Earth X world. Not of Venom, of their own perspective characters. You know what I meant. Number 2, Barbarian Venom. Okay, he's not a barbarian really, but in the War of the Realms, Eddie no longer has the symbiote Venom. He fights as best as he can against the Dark Elves on his own. A War Witch sees his awesomeness and bestows a Dream Stone to him that will give him anything he wants. Now, using this Dream Stone, he is imbued with all the powers of the Venom symbiote, but just quite a bit stronger and with Eddie's complete control, but feeding on his rage, which he shows us when he completely cuts off the arm of the really powerful War Witch and takes on a full force of giants and ogres and trolls and dark elves and a whole bunch of other stuff. But then he faces off against Jack-O-Lantern, also boosted up by another Dreamstone. While this fire-based villain would be a problem for Venom, Eddie gets this stone-looking armor stuff. And this is where we get the Viking barbarian looking Venom. Because he literally looks like a barbarian with a crazy horned helmet with a big axe with all these runes, and he's just so badass. He completely unlocks the seemingly unlimited amount of power from this Dreamstone, just going to town, and he even bonds the symbiote to civilians who join in the fight against the Dark Elves. Eddie literally calls down lightning on Jack-O-Lantern. He's wild. And eventually, this Dreamstone symbiote thing corrupts him a little bit and he gives it up, but damn, I love this story. Check it out. Number 1, Gwenom. Ooh, more wordplay. Even nicer. But she hasn't just got wordplay on her side. No, Spider-Gwen of Earth 65, or Ghost Spider, which is way better, has easily one of the best costumes of all the Spider heroes. Throw in a healthy dash of a symbiotic monster from outer space, notorious for giving great fashion advice, and, well, look at her. She's absolutely amazing. On top of that, Gwen sort of relies on Venom for her powers, since her original powers started to fade. But while that sounds bad, Gwen has actually learned to find a very healthy balance with her symbiote. The symbiote itself enhances whatever emotions the host has, right? So when she first bonded with Venom, thanks to a corrupt Matt Murdock Kingpin, who she was forced to team up with, she was rage-fueled and looking for revenge against the Rhino for attacking her father, and eventually against Murdock himself. But over time, she realized that she needed to control that and give Venom better qualities to enhance, in order to control and find balance with the symbiote. In a way, Venom actually helped her to become a better hero, all while still retaining that really, really sweet suit. Mwah. Chef's kiss, Cabella. Mwah.
Number 10, Magic Venom. I'm starting with this Venom because this is technically our 616 Earth Venom, and he's also not technically a bad guy, but he's really cool, and I love him, so... Sorry, Eddie Brock has been separated from the Venom symbiote when the Dark Elves and Malekith invade New York. But being the great guy that he is, Eddie gets out there and starts fighting Dark Elves with his normal human fists. Even after getting punctured multiple times, he still saves his son from a Dark Elf. All this heroism attracts the attention of a Dark Elf witch that grants Eddie a Dreamstone. It's a stone that basically turns dreams into reality. She expects Eddie to become the mindless Venom and an agent of chaos in Malekith's army, but Eddie's dream would be to have control over the symbiote, which is what he gets. He uses the suit to fight the Dark Elves, and eventually he becomes a Viking Venom hybrid. That is absolutely the coolest thing. Eddie gives up the suit as it is only feeding on his rage, causing him to only destroy, and gives it to the people of New York who saved the day. Not evil, but like I said, sorry. Number 9. Venom Deadpool, what if? On Earth 9211, Spider-Man has the Venom symbiote costume. When Deadpool is hired by Galactus to kill the Beyonder, he is given a weapon called the Recton Expungifier, the only weapon that can kill the Beyonder. When Deadpool tracked down his target to a nightclub, he was enticed into the Beyonder's partying lifestyle. He got Jerry curls is basically what happened. While hanging out with the Beyonder in a flying limousine, Spider-Man broke into the car and demanded the symbiote costume be removed from him. Beyonder's limo driver shoots Spider-Man, and the symbiote leaves him, merging with Deadpool. Now, Venompool. Beyonder eventually grew tired and longed for more, leaving Venompool and snapping him out of the Beyonder's magic. Venompool attempted to resume his contract and kill the Beyonder, but he accidentally pawned the Recton Expungifier. He kidnaps and sells a drunken Tony Stark to AIM, and he gets rejected from all the superhero teams because he has Jerry curls. He's evil because he can't do anything right. Just go with it, okay? Number 8, Spider-Man and the Power Pack Venom. Now, this version of the symbiote is kind of fun. In the Marvel Age miniseries Spider-Man and the Power Pack, a down-on-his-luck fashion designer literally runs into the symbiote walking down the street and is saved by Spider-Man. During the fight, the fashion designer gets his hands on the symbiote, which he crafts into 4 dresses for a fashion show that Peter Parker and Mary Jane happen to be attending, with Mary Jane even donning one of the dresses. Partway through the show, the symbiotes reveal themselves and take over Mary Jane and the models, becoming She-Venoms. Luckily, with the help of the Power Pack and bad European techno music at full volume, Peter is able to remove the symbiote and defeat it. Or is he? Bum bum bum. Number 7, Ultimate Venom. This version of the big gloopy hunger monster started in quite a different way than normal. This Venom started as a biological suit created by the fathers of Peter Parker and Eddie Brock. When this knowledge and the prototype suit fell into Peter and Eddie Brock Jr.'s hands, they decided to work on their father's project. After Peter had a dangerous run-in with the suit and wanted to destroy it, Eddie exposed himself to the control sample of the suit he created. But he lost control, consuming a janitor and later 2 security guards. He went about surviving by consuming innocent bystanders and trying to consume or bond with Spider-Man. Eventually, Eddie/Venom bonded with Carnage, stealing it from Gwen Stacy and becoming a monstrosity combo of the two. Number 6, Kingpin Venom. In the alternate Earth TRN 421, the year is 2061, and Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, has killed Eddie Brock, taking the Venom symbiote as his own, bonding with it, which is really intimidating already, but then he modifies the suit to be able to travel through technology. He can basically travel through the internet, controlling cars, helicopters, and electronic billboards. I don't know. Okay? I don't know. In the end, Peter had to flee into the woods, where King Venom followed. This part of the fight didn't last very long, with Peter using the fire from a torch to detach the symbiote from Kingpin, saving the day. Number 5, Old Man Logan/Old Man Hawkeye, Tyrannosaurus Rex Venom. Must drive faster, must drive faster. Old Man Logan is an insanely graphic and fresh take on the Marvel Universe. It is set in a post-apocalyptic America, where the villains of the Marvel Universe coordinated a simultaneous attack on the heroes orchestrated by none other than Red Skull. There's a gang of industrious Hulks, a giant skeleton of Loki crushed by the Baxter Building, old versions of superheroes and supervillains. Oh, and the Venom symbiote bonded with a frickin' T-Rex. After only showing up for a brief moment in the Old Man Logan storyline, Venom Rex instantly became a fan favorite character, which is good because it meant that we got to see how this came to be. At the beginning of the Old Man Hawkeye story, Clint Barton defends Jebediah Hammer from a gang made up of the multi-generational duplicates of multiple men. After Clint quickly disposes of all but one of the multiple men, the remaining man, I guess, ran into a puddle of the Venom symbiote, which bonded to him, and over time created an army of Venoms. After hunting down Clint to Kate Bishop's sanctuary, the two led the Venom army into the wilds, where a T-Rex from the Savage Land attacked the symbiote. Now, if you read Old Man Logan, you know that this is the exact symbiote that attacked Old Man Logan and Hawkeye. I haven't seen whether this iteration of the character has appeared later on though, although I know that he was defeated by Black Bolt. Let me know in the comments. Number 4, Mangaverse Venoms. I'm just gonna warn you now, this is a little confusing. So basically, there are 2 Venoms in these stories. There's a human man named Venom, and then there's the Venom symbiote, which is his normal black goopy self hidden inside an ambulance. They're both bad news bears, or spiders, I guess. The dude Venom is actually the son of Aunt May and her first husband, which makes it a little more heartbreaking when he kills his stepdad, Sensei Uncle Ben, and almost all the other members of the Spider Clan. He doesn't do this for no reason though. See, Venom is the enforcer of Kingpin, but as a member of the Spider School, he refuses to kill Peter. It's only when Peter goes to avenge Ben's death that they fight. Peter being overwhelmed by ninjas until he learns the true way of the spider and beats all of them, almost defeating Venom until Peter spares him. Venom cripples the Kingpin and takes over the city's ninja gang beings. He later comes into contact with the symbiote Venom and uses it to actually save Peter, sacrificing his own life, but then randomly shows up later looking more Venom-like and becomes Peter's teacher? So many mixed signals with this guy. Hey guys, before we get onto the top 3, I just wanted to say thanks for joining us. We can't really do this without your support. If you could just leave a little like and a subscribe if you liked this video, that would really help us out. Alright, let's get on to the top 3. Number 3. What if Spider-Man rejected the Spider-Venom? One of many what-if stories that involve Spider-Man and the Goopy Hunger Monster. In this one-shot issue, Peter rejects the chance to rise again in a new spider form after being killed, and leaves his body and spirit separated. This leaves his body as free real estate for Venom. The suit abandons its host, Mech and rushes, once again, to be with its first long-lost love. The symbiote fully bonds with Peter, turning him into a new violent monster called Poison. Get it? Because Venom is turned into Poison. Poison longs for a companion, and maybe it's Peter's subconscious desires, but he goes for Mary Jane. After Poison defeats the Avengers, Mary Jane offers her body, but not her soul, to both prevent any further harm to others and to make Poison's life as miserable as possible. This hurts Poison's feelings, and he says, screw that, and he runs off. Instead, he digs up the grave of Gwen Stacy and cocoons her, turning her into another symbiote similar looking to Carnage. Number 2. Spider-Man 2099 Venom. The Earth of Spider-Man 2099 is awesome. Cyberpunk themes, President Doom, a seriously flawed Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man with that awesome suit. It shouldn't be any surprise that the Venom of 2099 is just as awesome. The Venom symbiote in this world has been around for a long time, evolving to have new abilities like acid, blood, and spit. This version of the symbiote bonded itself to Kon Stone, the son of Tyler Stone and the elder half-brother of Miguel O'Hara. The symbiote first appeared when it tries to kill Tyler in the hospital, and that is when Spider-Man intervenes. The fight goes on for a long time, like several issues long. Venom even kills Spider-Man's former lover, Dana. After Miggy learned of Venom's weakness to sound, sonic sounds were emitted all over the city, stunning Venom and allowing Spider-Man to beat him, revealing Crom's identity. Later, the symbiote would merge with Roman the Submariner and flee into the ocean. Number 1. Spider-Man Rain Venom. Okay, please just pause this video. Please go read the story if you can. It's good, okay? Gave me goosebumps. Set 30 years after the modern Spider-Man stories, with a retired old man version of Peter Parker, Spider-Man Rain's Venom is hiding in plain sight. He has donned the identity of Edward Sachs, the age of the current New York mayor, and has been quietly pulling the strings from within. A Venom with a mind like this. He's recreated himself multiple times, became the new leader of the Sinister Six, and has installed a security system around New York to stop anyone from leaving. He has goons that walk the streets. He's a criminal mastermind, because he's upset at Peter for leaving. He's upset with him for abandoning the responsibility of Venom. The Sinister Six is defeated by bombs set up by Sandman. Venom is assumed to be defeated, but this guy is tenacious, so who knows for sure.
Number 10. What if Venom had possessed the Punisher? A great question. Well, as you can imagine, basically what would have happened is a lot of death. In issue number 44 of What If, we examine the answer to this question and see that Frank Castle ends up going on a killing spree as a result of joining with the symbiote. However, in the end, Frank realizes that Venom is attempting to fully possess him and resists, warning the symbiote that if not given back full control over his own body and his own actions, he will be forced to destroy the symbiote by taking his own life. This makes Venom reconsider its position, and Punisher is given back control over his body, with the two of them teaming up to become the new Punisher. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us by clicking that like button? Number 9. Age of Apocalypse. While it's never explicitly stated who the host is, the Venom of the Age of Apocalypse is interesting in terms of their appearance. This version of the symbiote takes a host that appears to resemble Captain America. They have a similar or the same shield as Cap and appear to be wearing a Captain America costume. I don't actually think Captain America makes an appearance in the AOA reality explicitly, so it seems more than likely that this is actually meant to be him, because I don't think we see him anywhere else, despite it being unconfirmed. If true, I like how Venom mainly changes the appearance of Cap's face and his hands, and that's really about it. Number 8. Mangaverse. It gets really weird for Venom in the Marvel Mangaverse. In this reality, Venom is actually a master ninja and son of May Parker and her first husband, before she was married to Ben, Shinji. May in this reality is actually also a skilled ninja too, so Mangaverse guys, Mangaverse. Venom here is not directly attached to a symbiote himself, although in this reality there does exist a version of the symbiote, a black suit. This black suit actually came from a Shadow Clan amulet, and Venom does end up attached to the Shadow Clan, so there are some connections there. When Peter becomes corrupted by the black suit, Venom sacrifices himself to free Peter. Number 7. Mania. Mania is a clone of Venom. Mania was actually created from a sample of Venom that had been acquired. However, that hasn't stopped the symbiote from taking on a life all its own, as it's continued to evolve in the comics, acquiring new purposes and hosts along the way. The Mania symbiote was first created by the Ararat Corporation from a piece of Venom's tongue that they had harvested. It was intended to be used as a weapon to basically wipe out all life on the planet Earth, but this plan, well, it didn't end up working out as they had hoped. And while initially the Mania symbiote became obsessed with feasting off of its victim's fear and literally eating people, it eventually found a stable host in Andy Benton, and even became a hero for a time. That is, before it was taken by the super sinister Lee Price, who himself was also one of the worst hosts the actual Venom symbiote ever had as well. Number 6. Venom 2099. Venom in the 2099 AD reality of Earth 928 is the brother of the Spider-Man of that era, Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara, Miguel's half-brother, is named Kon Stone, and he is Miguel's brother through his birth father, Tyler Stone, the head of Alchemax's research and development division. However, Kon never knew that Miguel was his brother, although he pretty much always hated Miguel, so I'm pretty sure even learning this wouldn't really change much between the two. After being left to die by the Punisher of 2099, whose family Kon was responsible for taking out, Kon ended up bumping into the Venom symbiote, which had mutated over the years. The symbiote bonded to Kon, and together they became the villain known as Venom. Number 5. Legion. Legion is another version of Venom that ended up being assimilated by him. Yeah, symbiote alternates can be kind of weird sometimes, to be honest. I mean, right now in the comics we technically have a bunch of Venoms that are all Eddie, but they're all like from different points in his life, and it just... symbiotes are weird. Legion was basically created by the maker and Eddie Brock, and was used to fight against Dark Carnage during the Absolute Carnage Venom-centric event. Dang, that was a fun event. Legion came to be thanks to a combination of codices which the maker was collecting on Earth 616 under the pretense of helping Venom to defeat Carnage. Now, in reality, the maker had his own plans for the collection of symbiote codices, which I don't think any of us are surprised by. However, those plans would not come to fruition, as Eddie managed to bond with the maker's collection of codices in his fight against Dark Carnage, allowing him to defeat Carnage by summoning a Necro Sword to, well, defeat him. Following this, when he was once more bonded to the Venom symbiote, it absorbed the Legion symbiote into itself. So, no more Legion symbiote, but it did exist for a time. Number 4. MC2. In the MC2 reality, we get to explore a world where Peter Parker was allowed to actually grow up and settle down. He and Mary Jane end up having 2 children, May and Benji. If you are wondering what Venom is up to in this alternate future, the symbiote ends up separated from Eddie Brock and locked up for a long time. Now, when it finally breaks free, it seeks out Peter. Looking to remain bonded to him, Venom intends on isolating Peter, leaving him with no one but the symbiote, and kinda also hopes to torment Peter as payback for his rejection years prior. Venom, as such, intends to kill Peter's family while bonded with Peter so that he can make him watch. Fortunately, Peter's kids both end up with superpowers in this reality, and his daughter, Spider-Girl, aka Mayday, ends up stopping Venom, saving the day as well as her entire family. Number 3. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? In What If issue number 4, we find out the answer to this question. Here, Peter didn't realize until it was too late what his black suit truly was. No longer able to seemingly separate from Venom, Peter remains stuck with the symbiote. Although he attempts to get help, Venom uses its camouflage powers to make them impossible to find, also taking control of Peter whenever he attempts to actually reach out and contact Black Cat to get help. When Venom does end up in a battle with the other heroes, heroes, the symbiote actually chooses to jump ship to Hulk, leaving Peter drained of life energy. Appearing as a frail old man, Peter would soon pass away, dying of old age once he was abandoned. In another confrontation, Venom once again leaves Hulk for Thor, attempting to bond to him permanently. Fortunately, this process is interrupted by the arrival of Black Bolt, who, of course, successfully uses his sonic powers to separate Venom from Thor and also kinda incidentally destroy Mount Rushmore. Sorry about that one. At this moment though, Black Cat appears on the scene and uses a weapon to permanently defeat Venom, getting revenge for the man she loved who the symbiote had taken away from her. Number 2. Venom. One of the alternate versions of Venom is actually also a version of Gwen Stacy. This version of the character hails from the Earth 65 reality, Spider-Gwen's home reality. You might have heard of it, especially if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse. Here for a time, Gwen Stacy, often known as Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen, or currently Ghost Spider, bonded with the Venom symbiote. In this reality, the Venom symbiote was created in a lab by Dr. Elsa Brock. It was used to return Gwen's spider-like powers to her through bonding with her. This version of the symbiote is seemingly made up of jelly-like little spiders which can come together and even shapeshift. However, this version of Venom was created based off of basically alien spiders. Initially, Gwen attempted to resist the offer to bond with the Venom symbiote because it was offered to her by her enemy, Matt Murdock, but desperate for a cure for her friend Harry Osborne, who, like Peter, had also used the lizard formula on himself, she ended up ultimately becoming one with the symbiote. Number 1. World of Codex. In the reality of Earth 1051, we get to see what would have happened had Dylan turned dark and become the extremely powerful villain known as Codex. In this reality, it was Anne Weying, not Eddie Brock, who became Venom after Peter rejected the symbiote. After a time, Venom adopted an armor-like appearance and changed their name to Agent Venom. Anne and the symbiote ended up having a child together that was half human, half symbiote. They named him Dylan. However, in this reality, Dylan does not become a hero, but instead becomes a villain, after falling under the influence of the symbiote god Null. Taking up the name Codex, Dylan sought to conquer the world. Anne, as Agent Venom, was one of the heroes who fought against Codex in an effort to stop him, but ultimately failed. Following Codex's victory, Agent Venom carries on, continuing the fight underground as a member of the Resistance. Number 10. Lasher. Lasher is one of the symbiotes that Venom was forced to give birth to by the Life Foundation, who kidnapped the symbiote in order to make Venom make more symbiotes for them, which is really messed up and explains why the Venom symbiote was so apprehensive when it was pregnant following its experience with the Life Foundation. Each symbiote that it gave birth to with the Life Foundation seemed to have its own special powers, and Lasher's was that they could remote control from a distance a non-sentient host in addition to their main one, using this other host as a form of reconnaissance or like a scout, or simply to just be in two places at once, which is pretty cool. I've always wanted to be able to be in multiple places at once. I could get so many things done. Number 9. Dylan. Dylan might not initially seem like a child of Venom, but in a way he is. In fact, it's even been suggested that he might actually be a part of Venom, a piece of the symbiote broken off and molded into something new, or at the very least blended with something new. Venom was a genetic contributor at the time of Dylan's conception, as Anne Weying, his mother, was bonded with the Venom symbiote when she became pregnant with Dylan. Dylan is therefore kind of like Eddie's, Anne's, and Venom's child all together. Dylan initially demonstrated powers which allowed him to control and bend symbiotes to his will, in addition to repelling and resisting them if they wanted to bond to him and he didn't want to. This made him insanely powerful. However, during the King in Black event, he lost this power, which it turns out was attached to the God of Light when his father Eddie Brock destroyed Null, who was attempting to take hold of Dylan's body via the living abyss inside him. As it stands now, Dylan is bonded with the Venom symbiote, which grants him some power, but he is also still very new to this whole thing, meaning he's not particularly skilled or really powerful just yet, which is why I ranked him so low. So low, despite his cool powers he once had that were pretty unique. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Venom lists, you want to learn about more of the Venom family, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Riot. Riot is also known as being one of the strongest symbiotes to have come from the ones Venom gave birth to while being kept prisoner by the Life Foundation. Riot is often suggested to be the strongest of the litter, at least the physically strongest. He is the most buff of the litter, and he has also been referred to as Mr. Riot, which is a name I honestly love a lot. Because of Riot's inherent super strength, the symbiote generally prefers to use its tendrils to create blunt force weapons, which it can then use in combat against its opponents, or to brute strength force its way through any obstacles in its path. Riot Smash. Mr. Riot Smash. Number 7. Scream. Scream was maybe one of the most powerful of the forcibly birthed Life Foundation offspring of Venom, and I mean powerful just in the overall sense. I say was as well because technically Scream was destroyed by Anti-Venom, its latest host. In fact, with Andy it was also at its most powerful, as Andy could also summon and wield Hellfire, which it would be immune to so long as Andy willed that. Unfortunately, in the end the Scream symbiote and Andy ended up in a fight against one another where Andy was forced to defend herself using the very same Hellfire against Scream this time, as opposed to with Scream. This unfortunately kills the symbiote. While it was alive, Scream's powers were similar to the Venom symbiote, which included the added level up of creating wings for itself and using those wings to fly around, and the unique ability of turning its tendrils into hair that they could then manipulate at will, similar to Medusa of the Inhumans. Also, I just like hair powers, I think they're cool. Number 6. Hybrid. Hybrid is the combination of 4 of the Life Foundation symbiotes, all of which were forcibly created offspring of Venom. Hybrid is the entity that exists when Phage, Agony, Lasher, and Riot come together. Being a combined symbiote, Hybrid has all the powers of the individual symbiotes that make it up. Mostly this means it is power similar to relatives such as Venom and Carnage, but it can also absorb chemicals, produce acid which it can use to attack with, balance the emotions of its host, and can remote control a smaller non-sentient host such as a dog, while still maintaining a bond with its main sentient host at the same time, which obviously that's a power that comes from Lasher. Number 5. Sleeper. Sleeper is the sibling of Dylan and also the 7th symbiote baby of Venom. They are most definitely thought of as Dylan's sibling, as the challenging pregnancy that Venom went through to give birth to Sleeper was not something carried entirely alone. In fact, Eddie even helped directly with this birth, and it was perhaps one of the first pregnancies that was more openly discussed with Eddie, Venom's partner. Eventually at least. And of course in comparison to the other symbiote babies that Venom has had while with Eddie, which I feel like Venom normally didn't even talk about at all, especially with Carnage. Carnage was like, what? And then later Eddie was like, what was that? And I was like, oh, I had a baby, whatever. Sleeper seems to be autonomous and doesn't specifically need a host, unlike some other symbiotes, especially in those early comic book days. I mean, back in the day, Venom was like, if I don't have a host, I'm literally gonna die. In this way, Sleeper is more of a giver, where their host would benefit more from their bond as opposed to the other way around. Sleeper boosts the abilities of its host and provides the additional power of producing various chemicals, some of which can be used to influence the emotional response of enemies, bending them to their will, making them sleepy, making them less aware so Sleeper can like sneak around more easily. Lots of cool stuff. And technically Sleeper can also kind of use those chemicals to like get a little bit of telepathy going on, which is pretty cool. Number 4. Carnage. Definitely one of the most powerful children of Venom out there, and one that we can't have a list without would be Carnage. Carnage is much more ruthless than Venom and much more prone to violence, though this is likely because of the influence of this symbiote's first and main host, and often their chosen host to this day, Cletus Kasady, notorious serial killer. Carnage has proven to be so powerful that on countless occasions it's required both Spider-Man and Venom, and oftentimes a whole assembly of other superpowered beings to put a stop to them. Even when others think they can somehow control Carnage, the symbiote has proven to be unstoppable and much too much to handle in most cases. Not only that, but even when Carnage turns to the side of good during the events of Axis, they still prove to be super deadly due to how deranged they are. Even when Carnage was like, I'm gonna be a hero, it was a rough time. Cletus Kasady inside was like, I don't really know how to be a hero. Do we still kill people? Can I still chop this person up? I like them. I want to chop them up. Number 3. Toxin. Toxin Toxin isn't specifically a child of Venom, but is more their grandchild, I suppose. Toxin is an offspring of Carnage, but is believed to be even more powerful than both Carnage and Venom combined. Toxin has all the powers of Carnage, but is believed to be stronger. Additionally, it is said that they have a more strong resistance to heat and sonic waves, making them a tougher opponent in most cases. While Toxin definitely has a dark side, they can also be reined in, which is what their first host, Patrick Mulligan, tried to focus on helping them with, mentoring them and trying to help them learn how to become a hero. So despite Toxin coming from Carnage, they're not inherently bad, though they definitely do have a little bit of a Carnage streak running through them. That's what happens when you're Carnage's child, I guess. Number 2. Silence. Silence was actually what came out of Scream's death. Andy Benton bonded with Silence, believing the symbiote at first to be Scream. In reality, Silence was made out of Scream's remains combined with Anti-Venom, making it much more powerful in theory than Scream. Technically, it is not a direct child of Venom, but it was made out of the remains of Venom's child Scream, and Venom's sibling, in a sense, Anti-Venom, known for being one of the most powerful symbiotes around. So because of this, I'm gonna count it as a relative slash offspring of sorts, albeit a very weird, very comic book complicated one. I mean, it's kind of like a clone of Venom's child, but then also like kind of part Venom's sibling, so yeah, I don't know. Number 1. Codex. This is technically an alternate future version of Dylan where he becomes a version of the King in Black instead of his dad. Well, at least a version of that on Earth. We meet this version of the character in Venom in the arc prior to the King in Black event. Dylan and Eddie of Earth 616 must team up in order to defeat this alternate god mode version of Dylan, who has become ruler of Earth, creating his own hive mind of symbiotes there that he himself controls. Now, if you thought Null was scary, then you would probably also really love this story featuring Dylan of Earth 1051, known at first as Codex. This version of Dylan would fall under the influence of Null, which was ultimately what turned him dark. Dylan of Earth 616 and his father would help to break the influence Null had over Codex, only for him to fall into a coma and then later be pursued and bonded with by Carnage. Dylan as Carnage in this reality made him even more terrifying than he'd been as Codex,